Duncan. I am a 2020 graduate from Louisville High School, and I am the current assistant debate coach at Alliance High School. Today, I will be going to a few coaching kind of tips, tricks, advice, techniques for middle school extemp debate. Starting off, we're going to just go into kind of the basics of the activity for people that may be new to starting a team. It is a relatively new category. And then we'll go into some tips and tricks and some drill ideas that may be more beneficial for any level experienced coach or competitor. So starting off is just kind of the general layout of the activity. This chart is straight from the NS2 website, and OSU uses the same kind of time format. The one thing that's not listed is the very first part, which is going to be your 30-minute preparation time. So just like for those experienced with extemporaneous speaking, whether USX or IX, very similar. 30 minutes of preparation time. Debaters will all get their topic at the same time. It will be a prompt that they'll be either signed affirmative or negative on. A sample prompt could be something like, is there a two-state solution possible for the Palestine-Israeli conflict? So AF may be assigned, supporting the idea that a two-state solution is possible. Negative may be assigned side saying it's not. Other topics could be more basic focused, such as I've had topics in the past where it was focused on during the school year, school library should provide safe spaces for students. And then there'll be a proposition arguing for that, once an opposition against that. So they'll receive a topic like this, new one every round, that they'll have 30 minutes to prepare their 2-minute constructive speech. And then obviously have time to practice that, and et cetera. Unlike extemporaneous speaking, students do not have to have their speech memorized or anything like that. They're allowed to bring in whatever resources they would like to read off of for that speech. It's just a preparation time for the round, to do research, et cetera. So going through the round, the first speech is going to be your proposition constructive. And as I said before, that's just kind of the constructive speech. They usually present around, around two contentions, just kind of explaining why to propose the resolution. Following that speech, there'll be a cross-examination by the opposition of the proposition, meaning the opposition will be asking the proposition questions for just 1 minute, usually just enough time for a couple questions to get in there. And then we'll go back to opposition constructive, which, unlike other categories like LD, for example, where that constructive speech may be actually split between a constructive and rebuttal, generally speaking, that constructive time is just used to lay out their case and present their position. Following that, once again, kind of on the inverse, is that now the opposition will cross-examine the proposition will cross-examine the opposition for 1 minute, once again, just asking a couple of questions for what the time allows. Following those 4 speeches, there will be mandatory prep time. So unlike any other debate category, there is not flexible prep time. You don't get to pick and choose when you can use it or if you need to use it. It's already set in the schedule, does not change. So both debaters will have 1 minute to start preparing their rebuttal. In that prep time, debaters are oftentimes just reviewing their flow, just going through and trying to do as much of the rebuttal prep as they can. And then following that, when that 1 minute's up, the proposition will now, once again, stand up, give their rebuttal, usually just going down the opposition speech. Maybe if there's time allowed, they may go back and kind of reaffirm some of the previous points. All depends on what the debater personally chooses to use for that time. After that, then the opposition will give their rebuttal. So that's maybe addressing the propositional attacks, attacking the propositional case, maybe reaffirming some other ideas on the oppositional case, and just really keeping things pretty general. Because these are 2-minute speeches, and I'll get this later in my kind of tips and tricks section, is that it's not a lot of time to kind of really give a very thorough line by line. Usually these are more general rebuttals that kind of just going through and refuting main ideas as opposed to actual like individual statements or claims. Following those speeches, there's another 1-minute mandatory prep. Once again, you are kind of forced to use this. It's built into the schedule, where those debaters can take times to develop their last speech, more of a crystallization or rebuttal, where the proposition would then give a 2-minute rebuttal, really just crystallizing the round. It's pretty flexible. They can try to give another more line by line type rebuttal that they gave before, but a lot of time it's just your key voting issues for the round, really just trying to wrap everything up for the judge. Once again, then the opposition will give the final speech for the round, doing the exact same thing, crystallizing the main ideas, and just clarifying any lost points that may have come up. So that's the general time layout for a round. Hopefully that makes things kind of clear for how a typical round will work. I'd recommend that if you did want to know a little more or kind of learn better seeing things, there are lots of different resources on the NSDA YouTube page from past like final rounds and things like that. So you can actually see a round in action. So some tips and tricks for the round, or not just round, but really just activity in general. The first one is condense. I think above all else, I stress this the most, is that it's extremely quick, extremely short category. As I went through the speech times, all speeches are either 1 minute or 2 minutes, very short. So the main thing that I think is the most important to get into, especially novice debaters' heads or debaters that may be coming from another category where they have more time to compete in this activity, is just to really try to keep things short and simple. Really try to compact as much as you can, just so it's going to be a lot easier for you later on when trying to fit into those time speeches, to have that always in the back of your head. I think that for 99% of the time, debaters are going to have too much than too little. So definitely try to condense as much as you can. Really try to think about things, only include what's necessary, really try to remove that fluff. The next has to do with more of the case writing itself in your research. Keep your evidence short and impactful. I think it's really challenging for debaters to try to like put like long quotes or kind of lengthy articles paraphrased into their cases. What I'd recommend is not only having, condensed evidence, short evidence, just a couple lines, but also make sure it's impactful. I think that a lot of the times debaters think that, oh, it's short, it's just gonna like be weaker. Not necessarily. I think that a lot of the time, like good research, especially even if it's at just the middle school level, to really still make sure you don't lose any of that impactfulness in the writing itself. So if you're going to do quick facts like percentages, statistics, I think those are some of the best ones for this activity. To have those type of things where maybe you just have to read off a couple numbers, because what that does is it still gives you the impactfulness, it still quantifies, or in some cases qualifies the situation, and you still leave time for other things. So that's my recommendation there, to try to encourage your readers to use those type of things, simply because timing wise, and also just the nature of the category, is that because things are so short, you don't have a lot of time to explain. So just to be able to give a clear number or a clear statement to the judge can really be the make or break your round. The next tip has to do with kind of preparation time, is to work with others. In fact, right in the OSDA bylaws in our manual for the activity, it's actually encouraged that debaters work with others in the prep room. Now, this does exclude like adults, judges, coaches, but it does encourage debaters to work with other debaters, even beyond their own team. It's one of the really nice things about the category, and I think that's why it's so important that it's at the middle school level, is that is a fantastic learning opportunity. So really, I would recommend encouraging your students or encouraging others to work together, collaborate. Everyone has the same topic for most tournaments, how they run using the OSDA rules. Just obviously the difference is whether or not you're a proposition or opposition, but still to work with others to build a case, because that leads to honestly teaching collaboration, but also leads to better rounds when you have a lot of research that went into developing those cases, into developing those arguments. The next point here is about timing yourself. So I think this comes in two main ways. Number one is in practice. So this is a really good drill that I think helped me a lot, is that I would practice with preparation time significantly less than what I would have in a tournament. I competed at the national tournament twice, my junior and senior year in this category, taking fourth my senior year. And I guarantee like one of the things that helped me the most, I would only prep with like 15 minutes for practice to develop a case. So I got really good at, being efficient in my research, being quick in my research. So when it came time for actual rounds, I almost had this excess of time where I could spend, really, really polishing, because I was able to get so quick and get so, it was, I like trained myself to just be quick in my research and writing those cases. Not just something that helped me a lot. Obviously, it could be different for others. But really in practice, using that clock, using that stopwatch to make sure that you're on time. The second part of timing yourself comes from the actual case itself. Because, like I said before, the nature of the activity is you just have 2-minute, 1-minute speeches. To get yourself as close in that 2 minutes, and not only your rebuttals, but also especially in your constructive, it can be very valuable. Obviously, you don't want to go over, and you don't want to be scared to go over, but also you really want to push that line, that 2-minute line, because that can be the difference of an extra card, an extra piece of evidence. So really making sure that in that 30 minutes, you don't just spend it all writing your case, but making sure you run through it, you practice it to a wall, a partner, someone else in the prep room. I think that can be really helpful too for debaters to get themselves used to knowing, okay, I'm at 130, I'm at 150, I can kind of sense where I'm at in the round, can really make the difference. The next one is another practice technique, is really practicing the news. Obviously the topics, no one knows what they're going to be from tournament to tournament, and no one knows what it necessarily, and there can be a wide variety of topics. But I think that the best way to practice is to practice the news. What's in the headlines that week? What has been in the headlines for the past few weeks? So, ideas like that are generally just like you wouldn't practice in USX or IX. A lot of those topics are going to be those, namely things, even if it is just at the middle school level. So practice the news, practice just like what's going on in the world. Encourage your debaters to, in their own time, sit down and watch 30 minutes a day. Just to get them more comfortable, if nothing else, to get them more comfortable with the type of things they're going to be discussing, because the more knowledge you have coming into it, the more comfortable you're going to be writing the speech, the more comfortable you're going to be delivering the speech, the more comfortable you're going to be with questioning and arguing and developing rebuttals for that topic. I know it can sound like a very basic thing, like obviously, like the more you know, the better it will be, but also I think it's just a really easy thing to do to get more comfortable with activity, especially for younger students. And the last kind of tip and trick I have is just to keep things general. Depending on like what the topic may be or the student may be and how they develop their arguments, it's always better to kind of just take a step back and like view things from like a more world approach in activity. Because of the nature of rebuttals, you don't want to get caught in a very nitty-gritty line by line, because you just don't have the time to do that. It's just like physically impossible to try and address every single little thing that was said. So keep things general, keep things conceptual for judges, because not only does it help your timing, making sure that you have time to address all those main ideas, but also like I think for judges, it can really help in making sure that they can understand ideas as well. You should always like kind of go into that tabula rasa mindset where like you're like, you could be talking about things that like your judge may have never heard before, or that type of idea. So just making sure that you keep your arguments general, don't be too specific, because that way it sounds like you're going to be covering a lot more ideas in a very short amount of time. As far as those tips and tricks go, those are the main ones I have for the activity. Of course, anything I said can be completely different from what works for you, and that's perfectly okay. These are just some different ideas that if you are looking for new techniques or practices, or just getting into the activity and want a direction to go, those are just the ones that work for me, and what may work for you as well. If you have any questions, feel free to email me. My email's right there. And really just, it can be about anything. I'm more than willing to share some of my past cases if you're looking for what those look like. Other resources, I would definitely recommend using the NSDA website. I think on the OSDA website, there are a couple links that they have there in the manual, but also on the OSDA website, it just has a link straight to the NSDA website that has resources like past rounds. They may, I'm not sure if they have a template, but they may have a template. And as well as that original time layout I have, that this was just straight from their website if you wanted your own copy of that for students as well. That is all I have. Thank you for watching. And if you have any questions, feel free to email me, and good luck this season.